There's a kind of exhaustion that is hard to explain to someone who has not felt it. It's not the tiredness that comes from doing too much. It's the tiredness that comes from not recognizing yourself in that moment. You said yes when something inside of you really meant no. You responded quickly, and then you replayed your tone later when you were quiet. You made a decision just to get out of discomfort. And even as you were doing it, you knew that it wasn't coming from your clearest place. That kind of disconnect, it carries weight. Not because you failed and not because you're off track forever, but because when your response does not feel aligned with who you are, something in you notices. Today, I want to talk to you about what it means to come back from that, not through a dramatic reset, not through perfection, but through the quiet, real-time return that becomes available in that moment you choose to reach for it. This is returning to alignment after disruption. So what we're actually going to be talking about, and I want to name this very clearly because women live this experience, then say it out loud. Alignment is not about having a perfect life. It is not about always feeling calm. It is about living from your own clarity, moving from intention, responding in a way that feels true to your values, your rhythm, and your own knowing. But alignment doesn't stay untouched. Pressure comes in, stress rises, emotion intensifies, and then suddenly the connection to your own clarity feels much quieter and it's harder to reach, less available in that moment. That does not mean it's gone, and it means that something is interfering with your access to it. And often it's not one big event that creates the most distance from yourself. It's an accumulation, the repeated habit of reacting quietly to relieve tension, the pattern of saying yes before the no has a chance to form, the posture of managing what is happening externally before checking in internally. And eventually you look up and something just feels off. It's not dramatic, just unfamiliar. Like you have been moving, but not fully from yourself. That is what disruption feels like. And I want to say this clearly. That is not a character flaw. It's not a sign of weakness. This is what happens when life applies pressure and you don't have a reliable way to return to yourself in real time. Most women know they are in alignment. They can feel the difference, and they usually know when they're not. What they often have not been taught is what to do in that moment when they feel themselves leaving it. In the moment that they feel the pull toward the reaction, towards self-abandonment, or towards choosing quickly just to make the pressure stop. That's what I want to focus on today. Alignment is not a destination. One of the most important shifts in this work and in the way that I teach it is understanding that alignment is not a destination. It's not a final state that you reach and then you protect it forever. Because when women think of it like that, disruption starts to feel like failure. You were grounded, you were clear, and then something happened and now it feels like you're back at square one. But that is not how this works. Alignment is better understood as a return. It's not something that you achieve once. It's something that you come back to again and again. After the hard conversation, after the reactive moment, after the decision that you made too quickly, after the moment you abandon your own knowing because the pressure felt louder than your truth. If alignment is a destination, disruption is defeat. But if alignment is a return, If it's practice of coming back, then disruption becomes part of the practice. Not because we want disruption, but because real life is going to keep bringing pressure. And the strength is not in actually avoiding everyday moments that feel unsettling to you. The strength is in the knowing how to come back. That's where the steadiness is built. The real problem is not disruption. The real problem is not that pressure disrupts you. Pressure is part of life. Stress is part of life. Emotion, part of life. The goal is not to become someone who is never affected by those things. The real problem is when disruption becomes your default state. When reaction piles on top of reaction. When the moment passes by, but you never fully return to yourself. That's when women begin to feel disconnected from who they really are. Not because they changed at their core, but because they've gotten too far from their own signal. And when I say signal, I mean that inner clarity that lets you know, hey, what am I actually feeling? What is true here? What matters most? What response would feel like mine? That signal doesn't disappear when it gets interrupted. It's the access that's restored at a very specific moment. It's what I call the choice point. And that choice point is the moment right before reaction fully takes over. It's the moment when you're activated and yet awareness is actually still available. You get a choice. When you become aware that that window is still open, that your response is still actually yours. That moment may feel super brief. It might even feel subtle at first, but it changes everything because your life is not shaped only by what happens to you. It's shaped by how often you recognize that moment and choose from clarity instead of from pressure to make it stop. The choice point is that opening. What the return actually looks like, well, I want to make this practical because this is where everything changes. The return is usually not dramatic. It's small, quiet, internal. It's the moment that you pause before responding, not to perform calm, not to buy time, but to let your deeper clarity catch up with the moment. It's the moment that you realize you're being pulled, and instead of continuing to automatically respond, you come back inward. It's that moment that you stop following the first emotional surge and begin listening to what is actually true underneath of it. That is the return, and this is what makes this work different from so many of the other personal growth things that women have already done. A great deal of that work is retrospective. You look back, you understand the pattern, you journal, you insight, you set the intention for the next time. And that work matters. It really does. It builds awareness. It's real. But awareness after the fact is not the same as access in the moment. Let's be clear about that. What changes your life is not only understanding yourself afterward, it's building the capacity to meet yourself while it is actually happening inside the pressure, inside the activation, in a few seconds before the old pattern takes over. That is where the choice point lives. And that is where the 7 positivity keys become so powerful, not as concepts to admire later, but as a way to return to yourself while the moment is still alive. The practice that makes it reliable, the 7 positivity keys, they're not a checklist. I want to say that plainly, because when women treat them as steps to perform, they miss what they actually are. The keys are an internal orientation system. You learn them in order, and that structure matters. Thought, intention, visualize, feelings, action, share, and touch. Each one builds on the last. Each one addresses a specific layer of internal experience, some cognitive, some psychological, some both. The thought key brings narrative awareness. The feelings key recognizes and regulates emotional response. The touch key grounds the nervous system physically, because the body often reacts before the mind does. And sometimes that's where you have to start. You learn the system deliberately, repeatedly, but in real life, you apply it fluidly. Sometimes one grounded breath is enough. Sometimes clarifying your intention in the moment stabilizes everything immediately. Sometimes the body fires first and you go there first. That's not skipping your steps, that's discernment. And discernment only becomes possible after the whole system has been understood. And here's what I know about this. And it becomes reliable under the pressure. You do not rise to motivation. You default to what's familiar. We're building familiarity. That is the purpose of the program, the Elevate Your Life program, not information installation. The keys are practiced and repeated until they're no longer something that you think about. There's something that you return to automatically in real time when it's happening. Alignment restored is not becoming something different. It's returning to yourself clearly enough that your next choice reflects who you actually are. And then over time, these moments, they matter because the direction of your life is shaped again and again by what you do at that choice point. Do you react from pressure? Or do you return and choose from clarity and intention? That's where the change actually begins. So what to carry from this episode? If there's one thing that you could carry from today, it's this. The next time that you notice that you've drifted, don't waste any time or energy measuring the distance. Do not turn it into a verdict. Do not make the disruption mean more than it actually does. Just return. Return to your breath, return to your body, return to what's actually true, return to the part of you that still knows. It does not have to be elegant, and it doesn't have to be instant. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to happen, because alignment is not about never being disrupted. It's about becoming someone who knows how to come back again and again with increasing steadiness. That's the practice. If this episode resonated with you, if you know what it feels like to lose access to yourself under pressure and you want more reliability way back, that is exactly the kind of work that I do inside the Elevate Your Life program. Not insight after the fact, the actual practice of recognizing the choice point, using the 7 positivity keys as real-time internal orientation system and building more aligned response in moments that actually shape the rest of your life. You can find more information at positivitykeys.com. And if you have been seeing my posts about the live training this month, on May 27th, I'm hosting a free session where I'm going to teach the choice point directly. And I'm going to walk you through why that moment matters so much when it comes to clarity and self-trust and aligned decision-making. That information is going to be in the bio there. And until next time, thank you so much for showing up. If you aren't following the podcast, please follow, share it with somebody who needs it. Thanks for being here today. The work of returning to yourself after disruption is not always dramatic. Most of the time it's very quiet, but in my experience, it's some of the deepest and most lasting work that we can do. Because you don't need to become a different woman. You need to strengthen your ability to access who you already are, especially in the moments when pressure tries to pull you away from it. You already know the version of yourself who moves with clarity, who responds with steadiness, who chooses from alignment. She's not far away. She's not someday. She's the part of you that becomes available again when you return. That's what we're building. I'll see you in the next episode. Thanks for being here.